well, I don't know why. Why are all these people on this plane? Like, why are they taking all these criminals on this big plane across the country to another prison or something? And I said, because it's a movie, man. Because it's a movie. It doesn't have to make that much sense. It was Con Air, right?
You were the catalyst for Con Air, Todd?
I was not the catalyst for Con Air.
So I think the big question is, are we rolling? Are we rolling yet?
But take two. Hold on now.
So let's actually start with that. Either one of you want to take the question, where does "are we rolling" come from? Or do we know what that even means? Are we rolling?
Well, I mean, we know what "are we rolling" means. It means
are
the cameras turned on? I mean, is the ball rolling? Are the cameras turned on? Are the actors ready? Go ahead and start. We're rolling.
I'm used to it coming from an old locations frame of mind, which is I don't want to interrupt. So it's like, wait, are we rolling yet? Okay, just want to make sure before I go step on set or before I turn this engine on. So yeah, are we rolling is essentially rolling cameras, rolling sound. Okay, what's that next big word? Action.
Is the red light blinking? That's what, for me, are we rolling? And if you're in front of the camera, you need to know because there's nothing worse than doing an entire take and the cameras were not rolling. So,
any of you had that happen to you before?
Oh, yeah, all the time. The worst is, if you're doing an audition or things like that, or people who have not hit record, or we just had this actually while we were shooting a motorcycle race scene where the cameras went off while the rigs went out. And so none of the shot was taken. So blocks of, racing, police holding down, everything going, and are we rolling? Someone should have asked that. But I think we should do introductions.
That's what I was going to say next.
Oh, yeah. Well, there
Frank,
we go.
why don't you kick it off?
I will have the pleasure of introducing Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jason Wagensback. He is the brain behind the Ranch Studios, where the sets are big, but the ideas are bigger. Jason has a to-do list the size of Louisiana, and he is the president of Film Louisiana, and we all take a bow to all the work that he does to make sure that our state keeps production rolling and that we have the best incentives in all 50 states.
Well, thank you for that, Frank. I guess I will introduce Todd. Todd Lewis, illustrious producer extraordinaire. You're going to have to tell me how long you've been doing this. I feel like it's been 25, 30 years, buddy. It might even be longer than that, for all I know. But you've got a laundry list of credits that I think a lot of people would be jealous to have. You worked on, big films, little bitty films that have done tremendously well. And you've line produced UPM. Sounds like you've come from the ground up, being a sole a PA and a director's assistant to where you are today. And obviously being a staple mark here in the state of Louisiana, we are lucky to have Mr. Todd Lewis, not only on this podcast, but obviously here in the state of Louisiana.
No, thank you. That's nice of you to say. Mm-hmm. And although I don't have anything prepared, I will toss it back to Frank. Frank is really a multi-talented person. He and his wife, Kathleen, moved here from New York. They're involved in theater. They're involved in film. They're involved in television. They write, they act, they produce. They also have a conservatory that they support a lot of people who are looking to get into this business, mainly in writing and in acting. And he's brought all those talents to New Orleans just a few years ago when I met them, where they came with a very small movie that we helped them produce. I believe, Jason, did you guys produce that movie, right? Did y'all work with them on that movie?
What movie are we talking about? We've done a couple of them since then. So.
He's talking. I know the second. We went to second line with that.
Yeah, we went to second line with that with Trey. That's right. Yeah. So since then, Frank and Kathleen have been making a big splash here in New Orleans, and they've really have some amazing original ideas, screenplays, properties that they've brought forefront, and are really, they're really the team that's behind starting this company, Full Armor Productions. They started it with Full Armor Films, I believe you said once, Frank, like 20 years ago, right? Yeah. And it's come a long way. And now we're attempting to marry it all together. with our production company. So, it just keeps going where Frank is with his creativity and what he brings to all this. So I'm really happy to partner with you and with you, Jason. And I think we have a good thing going. I think everybody's going to enjoy all of our different points of view. It's going to be good.
100% agree. Let me add a little bit onto that. I think the essence of why we are doing what we're doing is that all of us love story. Obviously, we've all fallen in love with filmmaking, storytelling. All of us have a passion for, creating intellectual property, creating great stories, whether it's commercial stories or whether it's, local Louisiana stories. I think we all have a real passion for where we are and what we want to really see come to fruition. But the real reason I think is we've got together is because we all saw, a void in the industry here in Louisiana, and we all wanted to prop that void up, which was giving opportunity for independent film, independent storytelling, and really not only showcasing our own stuff, but really helping others do that. And that's the reason that we've kind of, as you said, propped up Full Armor, and the reason why we all got together was to really find ways of generating more of that. Those projects to come to the state, obviously create more of these opportunities for the people that we love and that we've known for 20 years, at least I have here in the industry, see them getting back to work and really finding a way to incentivize stuff outside of the studio system that is not here currently, or at least is here just on a very minimal basis, how we can create that ecosystem here in the state of Louisiana. So I applaud you guys as partners for seeing that vision and being able to come together so that we can hopefully create something really great, which I think, as you mentioned, Todd, is already begun and really kind of kicked off pretty well. So look, question number one. What the hell is a producer? Let's talk about that. If we're all producers here, we all want to produce stuff. What's a producer? Todd, you've got the longest history of being a producer. You want to answer that question?
Well, I mean, we've talked about it briefly. There's a lot of different answers, and there's a lot of different types of producers, and we can go as deep as you want to go about executive producers and co-producers and associate producers and producer producers. But along the way, when people ask me that question, because it used to be a big joke, well, nobody really knows what a producer does. Well, I just define it as the producer goes in there and makes something happen. Where nothing is happening, the producer goes in there, whether it's finding the money or attaching the cast or getting the director or finding the property or introducing this person to this person so they can get together and make a movie or a TV show. I really think, and I'll go back to the example I used previously, because we're all football fans here, is, you give the ball to the quarterback and you go in there and you tell him to produce, make something happen. All right, go in there and make something happen. So that's what a producer does. A producer makes something happen. And a producer is defined different ways between television and feature films, but still the onus is on them to make something happen, whether you're an executive producer, which is kind of like the top of the totem pole in TV, and the regular producer is kind of the top of the totem pole in film. Regardless of that, each one is given the task of making something happen. The movie, in theory, would not happen. The TV show would not happen without this person. And that's really what I think is the crux of what a producer does. They make something happen where nothing is happening.
When all is said and done, the money talks, and I think that becomes the top dog. The ones that pay for it, whether we like to admit it or not, usually those that are sitting in first, second, third position, bringing in the financing, putting it together. And, to Todd's point, there's many different skill sets to producers, but there's always that main producer that brings the financing and puts it all together. And then there's those that actually are doing the financing.
Yeah, I agree. But look, I really look at the creative side as being more of the leader, just in my opinion. The person who is optioning the book, who is finding the life rights, who's really putting together the team and pulling together the core entity of how this IP, this intellectual property, is going to move forward. Because, you're right. The money is one of the most important, if not the most important thing to actually make it go. But to me, the one who is really put together that core team, grabbed hold of the story that they see, that they've envisioned, they had this huge idea of what this could become, to me, is the sort of the top dog producer. And most of the time, as Todd points out, they're the one that has the first credit. They have the first score, the first card, that comes up after all the cast that comes in play. They're usually the top dog, or they're the ones that have PGA, or produced by, if you will. And so, because they're the ones who are putting in a lot of the work. I mean, I have projects and property that I've been holding on to for, almost a decade. I'm in the process of doing a documentary right now that I worked on for 6 years before we finally got it, picked up. But I had to actually go out and find producing partners to do that. And I'm sharing in that credit, even though they've only been on it for a year and a half. I put in that long haul. I still consider myself as one of the top producers on it, even though they're bringing, some of that, if not the majority of that money into the mix. But it's figuring out all those relationships. It's really kind of keeping the train on the tracks. Because as we both know, even in the stuff that comes to us, it's looking for financing or just trying to figure out services. Keeping the train on the tracks is the most important thing, man. It is so tough to keep a story alive. And man, it is a blessing and a miracle to actually see it get up on the screen, right? I've worked on projects where we filmed the whole thing and we couldn't even finish editing it. For one, you didn't have enough money, or somebody else had to go get another job and it sat up on a shelf. Or man, it's just been going on for such a long time. But to me, look, producing is it is definitely not for the faint of heart. It is something that you have to love, and you have to be willing to put in sweat, tears, and sweat equity, as they call it, quote unquote, to actually make it become a reality, because it's just the toughest thing. And that's the reason why most producers have 20, 30 projects they're constantly juggling. Is one, you got to figure out, what is the market doing? Who wants to see what? How is this story actually going to make money so that I can then go make the next one, right? And so we were constantly working on a project, just like we are. I think we have 30 projects on our slate, guys. I think we've looked at it between services, it might be 40, between services and IP that we're trying to currently produce ourselves. We have a lot going on, and we're putting a lot in every day, and really trying to find the best path forward. So to me, you're right. The leader and the producer is somebody who brings in all of those elements. So I don't think it's really just one element. Look, guys, like I mentioned earlier, I have stuff that I've been working on for 10 years. How long does it generally take you all to develop a project? Or even from Todd's scenario, since you have so many people coming at you to produce projects, how long does it really take a project, the lifespan of getting it from, just that inception into actual production? Anybody want to take that one?
It really just depends on what the story is about, what the budget is, where it is in its creative process. Are you talking about from inception to on the screen? It could take years, or are you talking about, we have a screenplay and we have our financing and we have our cast. How do we get started? From there to the end? I think it's a really open-ended question, and I think it's different for every single project, whether it's a feature film, television show, or a documentary. It takes years to make documentaries, years. I think it's a difficult question to answer. You'd have to pick a specific project and say, hey, if you're making a $150 million movie about an oil rig, how long does it take? And we can talk about that in retrospect and say, hey, we had 6 months of prep, we had 4 months of filming, and then they had almost a year of post-production. So, but if you whittle it back down to one of these tier 0 movies that we're making, then, they get 3 weeks to prep, 3 weeks to shoot, and maybe 8 or 9 weeks of post-production, and the movie's over after that. Who knows when it's going to come to the screen? It doesn't have a distributor yet. There's no set release date for it. So really, it just goes back to the project and what things are in place for that project. Do you have a distributor? Do they have a release date? And most of the independents that the three of us are dealing with don't have release dates, right? They don't have distributors, these smaller independent films. And a lot of the big ones, they do. So you can pinpoint how long it's going to take from the time you start pre-production. If you're going to go back to when did they write the script? Scripts sit on shelves for years before people make them sometimes. So
yeah, the one that we have going right now, it's interesting because working with the producer and then the writer and the director, by the time it got to us, we had to offer the bad news that we thought the script was a page one rewrite. And, kudos to them. They actually took the note, and we weren't the only ones. There was another trusted colleague, I guess, that said the same thing. And then so with that, they went back to the drawing board, wrote it, got a much better script out of it, and got a studio attached, and now they look like they're going in this next year. But I mean, this is a decade in the making for them. I think you always run the tension as an artist or a creative that's making something where you have to go. You have this pulse that feels like, I got to make it tomorrow, and you just are always up against that. But that actually is working against you in making good, story or movie, and you want to take your time, and you love art that takes time, and you love pieces that it takes a long time to make a great movie, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. And so just listening to yourself to slow down, not rush any decision, and make yourself so that by the time you do hit those 15 days, as Todd said, in an independent, or you're hitting those 20 days in that window, you are completely coasting, and every detail of what you're about to hit. So yeah, it takes a long time to make great work.
And also being a lover of the story, and finding a way to reach an audience, which a lot of people don't understand. Like, some people say, man, I've seen this, I read this book, or I've read this story that I think it's absolutely destined to be a movie, right? I'm sure we've all heard it 100 times. Or somebody came up with this idea and they're like, oh man, I know this is going to be a movie. And it's like, well, what's going to make it a movie? How are you going to find that audience? Because, what crazy person is going to give you a couple $1 million to go make an independent film if it's got no potential to find an audience, right? And so, to me, and the things that I've learned in, the short time I've been producing, even though I've, produced a couple of things, is that, that marketing is a massive, it's really a massive thing that you need to begin from the onset. It's something that really needs to be a thought in your mind as you have that passion. As we are sitting here passionately talking about filmmaking, you need to be passionately out there trying to generate an audience around the story. We're not saying give all the goods, or I would never give away all the goods of the story, right out the gate. But you need to find a way to connect people to what it is that this story is eventually going to be. Because I feel like, if it doesn't sell 10 million copies of a book, the studio is not going to say, well, then I've got some backing or some, collateral that I know that people are going to want to end up seeing this movie, right? There's got to be some sort of collateral that the studio wants to look back at and say, well, I know it's going to make money because of X or because of Y. And generally, I'm sure, Todd, you've seen more of this than Frank. The majority of the time, these indie films that actually ever get raises on them have a star that then gets attached. So even if it's something that's got 10 million books, there still needs to be a catalyst to move that forward. Like, what other attachments can I say that I can actually put together to make the funding become available to actually produce this film? And so, this is an open question, but, what kind of crazy people are out there funding films? I get that question all the time. Like, hey, man, will you please take a look at my script, because I'm looking for a funder. I'm looking for somebody who will invest in this film. It's the toughest thing in the industry, as we all know. And even as a small business owner and entrepreneur like myself, it's the toughest thing to do is raise money. So, I kind of open that up to you all. What type of crazy people in this world are out there investing in films, and what does it really take to get a film invested or get a film, fundraised?
Look, there's a lot of shitty movies out there. Lots of them. All right. So, getting people to fund shitty movies, somehow or another they find their funding, they get their movie made, but there's some really bad movies out there. And you wonder, why did they make this movie? Where did they get the money from to make this movie? What were their expectations when they were writing this? You know what I mean? We've all read some really bad screenplays. And I that's just the truth of it. And I used to be a reader, and when you're reading this, you're like, man, somebody put like a year of their life into this, and it is awful, But I probably read 100 screenplays for Walter Hill, and I passed on one. That's only gave him one screenplay out of 100 screenplays. And
I said, passed on to him.
You passed on to him.
I passed it on. I passed on everything. I wrote coverage on it. He said, is it worth me to read the coverage? And I say, you should read the coverage, but you're never going to read this script. All right? It's the dog. It ain't going to happen. And the one that I did pass on to him, it got made. It was a huge hit, but it wasn't made by him. He passed on it because he said it
Really?
didn't make
What movie
any
was
sense.
that?
Well, it was he couldn't figure out.
It's a little
I read
film.
the screenplay, and I said, oh man, this is really good. I love this, and I gave it to Walter, and he read it. And he goes, well, I'm not crazy about it. And I said, well, what's going on? He goes, well, I don't know why. Why are all these people on this plane? Like, why are they taking all these criminals on this big plane across the country to another prison or something? And I said, because it's a movie, man. Because it's a movie. It doesn't have to make that much sense. It was Con Air, right?
You were the catalyst for Con Air, Todd?
I was not the catalyst for Con Air. I'm just saying it was one
knows a
a
good
script.
script when he
Walter
reads
was
it.
an action director. Look, once you read a good script, then the bar is set. You know what a good script is, and the first great script that I ever read was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I read it when I was really young in my career, and I'd already read a bunch of scripts. I hadn't worked for Walter yet at that time, and I was so into it that I went and got the F. Scott Fitzgerald short story, and I did research on it, and I did all this stuff, and I was like, man, everything else is just garbage compared to this. And then I was in search, and I still am in search of the next great screenplay. And I've read some really good screenplays. Lots of good, and we have some good screenplays ourselves, really good screenplays. So when you think about it that way, about how many you think are really good and how many scripts you've read over the course of your life, you're like, most scripts are not good.
Mm-hmm.
Most scripts don't get made.
I was looking at that movie because you said that it's Kennedy Marshall, right? Made that. Didn't they make that?
Yeah. But at the beginning, it was being pitched by Warner Brothers to Norman Jewison. And Danny DeVito was going to play Benjamin Button.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Not quite Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah, it's interesting what a
but at the
decade
time,
does.
you know, well, it's also interesting on what people perceive a leading man to be.
Yeah.
You know, just you don't have to be Brad Pitt to be a leading man that people buy into. And at that time, Danny DeVito was a big leading man, despite his size and everything. I mean, he was still a leading man. He was the lead in this movie, Other People's Money, that we were doing. Big flop,
Wait.
by the way.
Back to Danny DeVito, but do you think that maybe, obviously one, star power, but two, do you think because of his stature, was that a relative way of potentially them telling the story? Like, you know, all right, well, we've got a character who we know fits this era of the story because we know that, you know, he obviously ages backwards. So I'm just wondering if, since the visual effects weren't as good back then when he originally got cast, do you think that might have been something that they would have played into awry? Yeah.
I mean, when you're young, you really, I mean, and I'd say this, and it's because it's so true, you really don't know shit about shit.
Yeah.
You know, you really don't. You don't. It's like giving somebody an intern and saying, well, I don't want an intern because they don't know anything. I'm like, well, they're not supposed to know anything.
That was me on The Curious Case.
That's the whole reason they're there.
Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I was the intern on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and I didn't know shit about shit.
It's okay. It's okay to be that person because we all start somewhere. We all have to learn, right? Mm-hmm. And I sat in meetings just because I was an assistant. I just sat there, and I understood some of it. I didn't understand all of it. They had a great screenwriter. Alvin Sargent was the screenwriter who they were talking to about Benjamin Button, about redoing it so that it would work for the DeVito character. It's interesting. That's a long time ago. But and then in that movie, talking about the life of a movie, sat around for years and years and years before it came back and was made by whoever made it, Kennedy Marshall or whoever did.
Yep, one of my first movies here in New Orleans, Louisiana, Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And and back to what we were saying about the producer's the person who gets stuff done. I was just an intern who was just trying to get as much shit done as I possibly could. I just wanted to get recognized. So I was hustling, and at the time I was an editor. Like I had taught myself Final Cut Pro and I was learning Avid, or I'd finished learning Avid in school. And I was always, trying to get into the editor's room, the assistant editor's room, be like, oh, I just want to go see dailies. I want to go see how you're organizing all this. little did I know, I was just out there hustling for, the line producer, Danny Stillman, and then Mark Hammer was the UPM at the time, was freaking awesome dude. And he kept me on other shows for then. I worked my butt off, and he kept recommending me for other shows and kind of made my way here in New Orleans. But yeah, man,
that's awesome.
Really, really cool origin story around that. But you mentioned Walter. Who is Walter that you used to work for? Can you dive into
Walter
that
Hill, like 48 Hours and The Long Riders, and great action director.
And that was one of the first people you worked for in Hollywood?
He was, no, he wasn't one of the first, but he's the one I worked for the longest before I transitioned out of assisting and into like production supervising.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did 3 movies with Walter. I did Geronimo. No, I did Trespass, which was originally called Looters. And then I did Geronimo, and then I did Wild Bill, about Wild Bill Hickok. So look, once you read a great screenplay, I'll tell you another thing. When we were speaking of that movie, Geronimo, we were in Moab, Utah, and I went to there was nothing in Moab at the time. I'm not sure there still is anything in Moab. But we used to go to Grand Junction, Colorado, because that's where the mall was on the weekends. And that's where the airport was, and that's where you flew into and everything. And I found a book for $1 outside the bookstore in one of those baskets. And it was 3 screenplays by Irving Ravitch and Harriet Frank Jr. And I don't know if you know who the Ravitches were. They were married. But they wrote HUD, The Long Hot Summer. These people wrote like an artist. You know what I mean? They wrote just so beautifully, and it was so visual to read it. And again, I'd never really read anything like that, And it just keeps setting the bar higher. And they wrote a lot of Marty Ritz movies. And I stumbled into that because I used to live in Marty Ritz guest house.
Wait, so going back, so you found 3 screenplays for $1 at a bookstore?
It was a book that says three screenplays by Irving Ravitch and Harriet Frank Jr.
I remember in New York when we would walk and there would be these guys selling screenplays out on like a table. And it was
I
like
remember
gold.
that when I lived there. Yep.
Yeah, it was like gold to find screenplays. I don't know if you remember. Now it's like people, they're out there. You can Google, you can get anybody's. It's like it was gold to find a screenplay, so you could implement or be inspired and find great writing. Like to your point, you have to read a great screenplay to set the bar, right? But I don't know if you remember that, but like the 80s, you couldn't get your hands on it. So I just love that you found the printed
just
version.
random like in a basket of books.
Yeah.
And look, I always tell young people, what can I do best to learn the business? Read screenplays. Read and read and read. Read the good ones, read the crummy ones, read them. Force yourself to read the bad ones.
Yeah. Almost read them over watch them. I know it's a different experience.
Yeah, and I have such a production mind that every screenplay I read, I obviously know which ones are, at least in my mind, which ones I think are bad and good. But I mean, given my freaking title, Head of Possibilities, I read every screenplay and I look at it and I'm like, I know how we can shoot this. Like, I can see it. I can actually visualize how we're going to make this. But then obviously the tougher part is actually figuring out if it can be, commercially viable so that it can actually make it somewhere. And so that's actually a great question. Like, what makes a script ready? Like when we read scripts, I mean, Todd and Frank, you guys go through a lot more scripts than I do, knowing all the business things that I have on my plate right now. But when you read scripts, how do you know when they're ready? Like sometimes you're sent some that you're like, oh man, this thing's ready to go. It's ready. We're going to, we can take this to the moon. But how do you read a script and think that there's something there and then figure out how to get it to when it's, potentially ready?
We'll probably answer this differently, but as a writer, it's never ready. And I mean, that's the easiest part. There's phases of readiness, I would say. And if any, I'm always, one of the biggest turnoffs for me is when a writer or someone approaches and just says, this is the best thing ever. And it's like hands it to you with a bow on it, because then I know it's going to be bad. Because whenever you think it's done, there's just a process to it. So to me, I always see it in phases. There's the ready to share with your trusted ones that you're going to get your notes that are not afraid to tell you the truth and give you great insight into what you can see and not see. And then there's that ready to go out to team members or people that you're trying to finance with or trying to build or put the team together with. There's that phase. There's a phase of financing that it goes out to. I mean, and these are all different phases because you get feedback at every different phase. And it's just like we just talked about. I mean, you have a version of something with a completely different vision, with a completely different actor and team and way to go about it. And you probably bring in a different writer for that, or maybe someone else to come in and polish because you're going to now shoot it over here versus over here. I mean, the phasing of it is when is it ready for this phase? Because then I'd say you have a shooting script, right? You take that script and you're now moving it into your line producer and your PM and you're moving it into your shooting script, right, Todd? I mean, like, that's a script, but then, I mean, time and time again, and we could probably go through so many great stories, and something we just shot where we wrote something for over, 2-3 years we were making it, and then we wrote a scene the day we were shooting it. And it became, a vital piece of that. And it was up into the day. And, so I think to me, the writing process it's a phase. It's never completely done.
Todd, you got any comments?
I mean, it's got to be done at some point. When it goes to camera, it's done. I'm not a writer, but I am a reader, and I read a lot of things. And I like to read books. But I mean, when I read something, I just look to see if the story is complete. I mean, is it complete? Is the story? And look, it's very subjective. Somebody else might go, "What do you mean it's not complete?" That question's asked and answered inside that screenplay. So you have really talented people that work with agencies and studios and networks, that this is what they do. This is what they're paid to do, is to take a screenplay. And, I feel like everybody feels like they have to make a comment. Like there's no way they could just read it and not make a comment, right? But I mean, look at one of our projects. Very few, if no notes on the Asian American woman to become the first person in the U.S. Navy. I mean, I've given Kathleen notes on screenplays before, but I really don't have any notes to give on this other one. If they had to say I got to go in and cut something, I could give them suggestions, but I don't think there's anything that I can give them to make the story better. That movie is ready to be made.
Agreed.
So, and again, it's very subjective. Somebody else might read it and go, well, we need to follow this person's arc a little bit more than this person, or this or that or the other. But you just have to decide that the movie's ready. And is it ready, or there's just too many unanswered questions in it? It's easier to pick it apart, than it is to say it's ready.
It's also hard if you don't have that much of experience in producing films or being a part of films, or, as you alluded to, Frank, reading really great scripts that have already become movies, and really getting an understanding of how the structure and the layout is. Because, I mean, if I handed a screenplay to my mom, I don't think she'd know how to read it. You know what I mean? It's a really kind of a different structure of how we lay out telling the story, right? And so there's a lot of elements.
You'd be surprised, Jason. Your mom may give you some very good insight because she's not in the business. She's not looking for an angle that we are. She doesn't care that it makes money or that it goes to TV. She's just reading us a good story. And so your mom may actually give you some good constructive comments that you hadn't thought of, like we just got from Netflix.
You're right. My mom is very opinionated. She would definitely do that if she could read the script. What I'm trying to say is that it is not like reading a book. Like it's a completely different way of how we structure a story. There's not all the detail. We don't have as many words just trying to describe a scene, because the majority of the time we're really trying to get the reader to encapsulate themselves and visualize it in a way that again doesn't give all the major description of what's actually going down, and you do it mostly in dialogue, right? There's not all these big slug lines of description and setting up scenes, and so it's just an interesting way, is what I was trying to say, to communicate how we actually want to make a movie. But again, it takes experience, and it really takes the understanding of reading great scripts, knowing how to cross compare. And obviously it goes across all genres, right? So, I mean, a horror could be great, and I wouldn't know, I'm not a big horror guy compared to some of the dramas that I love in different aspects and in different ways. But I think a lot of the elements that we would get would pare itself down to really figuring out, what is going to make a great script and what's going to get it to the point where it's either going to sell to a studio or you're going to have people want to put money behind it to actually produce that movie. So
I think you make a great point about kind of what we'd say is, just a layman audience member, because we had the opportunity, whenever you have the fortune of being able to do reshoots. I remember we screened, I screened for my aunt, and who I didn't have any expectations to. And this is kind of like, I guess, to Todd would be like, getting a screening together. And we've done that, obviously, at some phases where you get an audience in. But I remember we got one of the best notes that I never saw coming for a certain moment where just talking after, and then she was like, well, I just realized I'm going to get to know our lead another time. And it was this like side comment, and it was just a perfect thing to know that we were missing this really intricate piece that we got to then put into reshoots, and it became a great part that we didn't see missing. And if you can have the opportunity to do that while you're still in the writing phase and you haven't gone to production, obviously you're going to, and get some feedback like that. It's actually smart to send to someone who you might not expect. But I will say also advice on that is, even giving one or two just pinpoint, not just giving someone and saying, read this and then tell me back what you think. Because like everybody's going to feel like they have a comment, but actually giving direction in the notes that you want. I'm looking for, does this work or not? Because sometimes you don't do that. And it's really actually helpful to know. And we get that a lot. So like if someone sends me a script, I'm like, what is it that you're looking for? And, where are you in this process, to me, like the phase? Because I could be looking at something completely different coming at it, and it's helpful to have a little bit of direction on what you're seeing and what problems you're trying to solve.
Yep. Well, guys, we've been rolling for, I think, a good 35, 40 minutes here. I think it's time for some rapid fire questions, if y'all are good with that, as we sort of close this out, because this obviously is going to spark some more conversation, I'm assuming. But what's everybody watching right now? Anybody seen a good movie or something on streaming? I was going to say TV, but I mean, it's not TV anymore, I don't think.
I watched House of Dynamite.
Oh, you like that?
One thumb up. Yeah.
Not two? He gets a one
thumbs
thumb?
up. Yeah,
Okay.
Holding something with my other hand. Really good. It's it's interesting because I just watched that. What's the movie where the kids all disappear?
Stranger Things?
Weapons?
No, Weapons, right. So I just watched Weapons as well. And there seems to be this trend of this narrative of telling the whole movie from one point of view and then jumping and starting over again and telling the movie again from the beginning, from the other side of the phone call, or from, in this case, it's the people who deploy the missiles, the people who give the orders to deploy the missiles, and the president. So the movie starts back over again each time, and it's really great cinema. But it reminded me, I just thought of it today because I was telling somebody about it. It reminded me of United 93. And for a long time, we didn't really want to watch any 9/11 movies. We just couldn't watch any of those movies about 9/11.
Yeah.
And then we finally watched United 93. And it is the first movie I've ever seen that tells it in that narrative, that does everything and then backs up and tells the story over again from another person's perspective. So so that was what I really liked about this House of Dynamite. And it's like on the edge of your seat.
I'm watching Stranger Things right now. We were talking about, being able to see great scripts, me being a great producer, but wanting to be a great producer, I should say, and being an entrepreneur. I was always interested in how they got it made. And somebody actually sent me the original pitch deck from Stranger Things in the development process, which was just, to me, gold. You know what I mean? Just seeing how they put the mood and the tone and everything in. I was like, oh man, it's spot on. And they made it almost to the T of what they had actually pitched, which was just really cool. So that inspired me as a producer early on when I was trying to get other things made. So anyway, that's what I've been watching lately. Really excited to continue on. I went through the first 4 episodes that were launched already, so I got to wait another month for the next ones to come out, but it'll be good.
Well, I'm a SAG screener this year for the nominees, so I've got so many screeners to watch, and just not enough time to watch them all. But I watched A Private Life with Jodie Foster, which was pretty fascinating performance from her. Just speaking in all French and was unbelievable as an actor. Kind of blew me away. The movie was decent, shot beautifully. And then but what I would recommend is I just watched Train Dreams, which is a great friend of mine who wrote and directed that. And they shot all that with natural light, which I find amazing. I know, and I just would just kind of welcome that experience because it was beautiful. I mean, I know it went straight to Netflix. I just wish I would have been able to watch it in the theater.
Yeah. I saw a little bit on it since we talked about it the other day on one of our phone calls. And so I was getting some, I guess, my algorithms were hearing us talk about it. So it was sending me some stuff. So I'm excited to see that movie. It looks really cool.
It's beautiful. Clint did an amazing job. He's like, I've told him, he's surpassed all levels of filmmaking, since just watching them grow, like with each feature, they're on an amazing roll.
Clint's the director again? What's his full name?
Writer-director, Clint Bentley. Came out and shot Hotel Owl for us when we did that short doc.
Yeah.
And, he helped me develop on Conversion Van, which we just made a proof of concept for. And he's always been a big believer in that project. And but I saw their pitch decks Sing Sing. They shot all those guys in our studio in New York back when it was just on the napkin. And really the formula of how they put Transpagos together was the formula of how we put American Reject together, which is, we shared budgets on that. And then how we got down to New Orleans to do that when Todd found us with that small film. So, we've been sharing notes with each other for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, we need to get into some more origin stories on future episodes because I really think that's inspiring. I mean, thinking about, you being friends with, this guy that's now making true Hollywood movies. And it's really, at the end of the day, that's hopefully what all great businesses are doing, but what all great filmmakers are doing is just not giving up, continuing to better their craft, better their relationships, and eventually something's going to break where, you're going to get to be where you want to be. And hopefully we're going to make more of those opportunities alive as we continue to grow our business. And I really think we have a good opportunity to do that.
I was going to say, but this is far from rapid fire.
No. I said we were going to deep dive into some of these questions.
Yeah, right.
Maybe this will be a little bit more rapid fire since I know we don't necessarily have too much stuff, but we have a decent amount of stuff to talk about. But what's some of the stuff that's exciting in 2026 coming up? We're obviously getting to the end of the year here, boys. So what are we looking forward to in 26? Industry-wide, film-wise, changes that we see coming, anything we want to jump on? We can make it rapid fire. It could be one word if you want, since we dive into everything.
One word would be more.
I love that. Love that.
Put a hyphen. More work. Yeah, I'm excited for 2026. I'm excited for us coming together. I'm excited to... it's looking up. It looks like the industry's making a turn.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'll fold this into the next question, which is, what is sort of some of the updates or announcements that we have, moving into 26. But I agree. I've gotten a lot more calls. We were in Los Angeles for the middle of October for our Film Louisiana, industry event, had a lot of conversation, met with a lot of studios. And people were really high on Louisiana. They were really interested in obviously bringing stuff back domestically. And we're starting to see that. We had a real hot phase there for a couple of weeks after that Los Angeles trip where we all started getting calls. The rumor board was exploding, I know, with IATSE. And there was a lot of stuff. We obviously here with us with Full Armor brought a couple of projects in that are wrapping out, currently are working on getting wrapped out right now. We got a couple more. Obviously, we're looking to get started in January, hopefully February and March with a couple other ones. And then look, studio-wise around, we've got some good stuff coming into Baton Rouge. We've got a big feature film coming in there. Hopefully another one in March that I was talking with Corey about, which is great. Great to hear that they're getting a lot more opportunities up in Baton Rouge. You got Shreveport, which is going to be killing it here soon with Curtis Jackson and 50 Cent. There's also a couple things out of Lafayette that I was hearing about, which I thought were quite interesting. They're real small, but still a lot of projects going on. And then a couple of other features and hopefully a big television series all starting, obviously, in the first part of next year. So anything is better than 2025 because I think all of us were really hurting this past year. And the start of 2025 was just tumultuous, where we all expected something and nothing came. I think it's going to be a lot different here. So I'm really excited, obviously, to, as you said, get that ball rolling so that we can get some more people back to work and get things exciting again back in state of Louisiana.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Anything you guys want to add as we close out? All right. You guys are full of life at the end of this podcast. Right. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. We are going to obviously look forward to podcast, or episode 2, I should say. Episode 2. Don't know when we'll schedule it. Hopefully we'll start doing these on a weekly, maybe monthly basis. We'll see how our schedule permits. But we'd like to continue, obviously, having a conversation around film, not only here in Louisiana, but in general. So Todd, Frank, thanks, guys. We'll look forward to seeing you guys real soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again in like 30 seconds.
Got a couple things to button up before the holidays.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Some holiday
and
cookies.
If we're not rolling anymore, then we are cut.